Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am Patrick Lyons, your host, to talk about the Colorado Rockies. They've made some news over the weekend. Lots of stuff going down in the world of your favorite Denver baseball club, those Colorado Rockies. The final managerial spot has now been taken off the market for those Miami Marlins. Platinum Glove Award was announced over the weekend, and a certain piece to the Nolan Arenado trade is no longer a part of the Colorado Rockies. Let's get into it. Jimmy Herget, the latest member of the Colorado Rockies, claimed off waivers on Friday by the Rockies from the Chicago Cubs, where he finished up his 2024 with the Iowa Cubs in AAA. Jimmy Herget, 31 years old, a little more than 2 years of big league experience. In fact, actually, I think with the few appearances that he had with Atlanta this year, he's probably over the 3-year mark. He is a gentleman known as the Human Glitch. That is his nickname. Now, his numbers are good. You should be happy about this. You definitely should be excited about some veteran presence coming to the Rockies bullpen. We know that the Rockies definitely needed to get some older guys, more service time players, more notable names, if you will, amongst the baseball industry, because they had so many rookies. Still do. And this is a really good acquisition for them. A guy who spent much of last season in the minors, but this is a player in Jimmy Herget who has a 3.54 ERA in parts of 6 seasons in the majors, a 122 ERA plus. And just about every stop he's made in the minors, he has a sub 4 ERA. There have been various stops where for a short amount of time, for 10 games here, 6 games there, he may have had a higher than 4, but every season that he's been in the majors or minors, he has had a sub 4 ERA. So this is very much a veteran presence that the Rockies are getting on the cheap, claiming him off waivers from the Cubs. And because this will only be his first time through arbitration, he's not going to be making a lot of money. And he's controllable for the next several seasons as well. So if he ends up staying with the Rockies for the next 2+ years, that benefits them very well. If not, and if he does have a positive year in 2025, he becomes somewhat of a valuable trade chip because he has a couple more years of club control. So this was a really positive pickup for GM Bill Schmidt and the entire organization. I almost called him Glitch. Jiminy Glitch? No, Jimmy Herget. Although that could be a good nickname, Jiminy Glitch. Now, the pitching ninja, let's get to his nickname, the Human Glitch. The pitching ninja calls him that because when you see him pitch, it's almost like something out of a video game where he's sidearm, and sometimes it takes guys who throw sidearm to get that arm all the way around. Not that it's a delay, but you can't be very quick with it because the arm takes a wide path. And somehow Jimmy Herget is able to do that very quickly. So it is an odd throwing motion. And the Rockies already have somewhat of an odd thrower in a Justin Lawrence with that 3/4 arm slot, sometimes sidearm. Does that not bode well for Justin Lawrence? We'll kind of wait and see. We know that it is important to vary the arm slots in your bullpen. So you're throwing out a Jimmy Herget and you're throwing out a Justin Lawrence back to back. That's going to look really similar, and you're not going to get a different appearance from the opposing hitters. So do you have to separate them in the bullpen? Is this the end of the line for someone like a Justin Lawrence? These are some of the questions that we will find out over the course of this offseason. Justin Lawrence definitely, I think, has a lot left in the tank and has a lot of really good days ahead of him as a big leaguer. Will it be with the Colorado Rockies? That sort of remains to be seen. But Herget spent a majority of last season with Atlanta after getting let go by the Angels, who he was with for much of the previous 3 years. Only had 8 games with Atlanta last year, 4.38 ERA, 12 1/3 innings pitched. You like his strikeout numbers, 10.9 Ks per 9. And even in AAA, he had a 2.88 ERA. And you would hope that in 34 and third innings pitched in the International League, he would have something like an ERA in the mid threes. He was sub 3. And you would think that because he's going against a lot more inexperienced hitters he can take advantage of with his unique delivery and just with his general experience. He was in the Pacific Coast League for a little while at the beginning of the year with the Angels, had a 3.97 ERA in that hitter's haven. So Jimmy Herget, a really good quality pickup considering you didn't have to trade anything for him. He's not going to be making a ton of money. I'm not sure what the arbitration number is going to look like for him. I could see it being maybe $1.25 million, maybe $1.5 million, but not a ton for a guy who going into this season, he was just shy of 3 years of service time. And going into this season, if you look up and down the Rockies bullpen roster, outside of a Tyler Kinley, the entire bullpen right now had as much service time as Jimmy Herget. That lets you know how young and inexperienced the bullpen is. And you're going to need to lean on some veteran players. You saw that in 2023 with the likes of Pierce Johnson, Brad Hand, and especially Brent Suter. And we saw that last year as well when it came to Jalen Beeks. And I think the Rockies still need to go out and add 2 more of these kind of players. They thought they were going to get that last year with the Daniel Bard in the back of their bullpen, and he was quickly wiped off the board. You thought you were going to get Lucas Gilbert back. We still don't know the state of his health, if he is able to come back and provide 50-plus innings out of the bullpen for the Rockies. So Colorado needs some reliable, healthy arms. Not just reliable in what they can do when healthy, because we know in baseball and today, there are plenty of guys that when healthy, quote unquote, can be really good, but you have to be healthy. The best ability a reliever can have is availability, and Jimmy Herget absolutely has that. Jonathan in the chat, can teams offer contract extensions to Roki Sasaki? If yes, then should the Rockies offer Sasaki a 10-year, $250 million extension? It's a little bit complicated. I will be talking about this week. There's a lot of really good shows coming up. Nolan Arenado, a lot of trade conversation surrounding him within the Cardinals organization. Roki Sasaki, who you look at what Yoshinobu Yamamoto made coming over from Japan to the Dodgers. Roki Sasaki, different situation altogether. The Rockies actually have a shot at signing a Roki Sasaki, at least much more than what they did Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Now, will they acquire their first Japanese-born player since Kaz Matsui in 2007? That is what I will be getting to later on this week. And no, Sasaki will not require $250 million to become a member of the Rockies or anybody else in MLB. That coming up later this week. So Rockies had a full 40-man roster right now. Players on the 60-day IL do have to come off. There's no injured list during the off season. So Lucas Gilbert, Herman Marquez are basically active right now. And as I just posted not too long before recording this on Twitter, on Threads, at Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons MLB, looking at the Rockies' 40-man roster is very strange right now because for the first time since 2010, we're almost talking 15 years here, you look at the 40-man roster and you do not see the name Charlie Blackmon. That's wild. I know he said goodbye. I know he retired. I know he's going to stay with the organization. But these are some of the typical milestones. These are some of the moments that still happen after a player steps away from the field. No longer on the 40-man roster, no longer in that opening day lineup. And so we still have some of those milestones coming up for Charlie Blackmon. And people are sad. People still remember. People will not forget a Mr. Chuck Nasty. Are they going to forget Elehuris Montero? I don't think people are going to forget the Nolan Arenado trade. We know that. Arenado and $50+ million going to the St. Louis Cardinals for a package of 5 players, led by big leaguer Austin Gomber, who has been very valuable to the Rockies. You must say, he has been very valuable to them. And the second player that really headlined that Arenado trade back in the beginning of 2021 was Elehuris Montero. This was a player who at 19 years old won the Midwest League MVP. Definitely had a lot of power. We saw that in the minors, multiple time player of the month with the AAA Albuquerque Isotopes, even after struggling in the majors, getting sent back down and immediately having success with the Isotopes in 2024 and in 2023. He is a player that I think can hit. He does have that hit tool. Defensively is where Montero struggles. I don't know if Montero on his next team, which I'm leading up to that, I don't know if Montero is going to go back to third base. I could see working with the right coaches and the right instructors, him maybe having that third base glove back into his bag. But there's nothing with some players, there's just nothing that any coaching staff, great or mediocre, can do to move the needle for a player defensively at the hot corner. And so I think the Rockies did everything they could over at third base. But could positioning help out Montero a little bit? Can you hide a guy on the hot corner? Find out, because the Hiroshima Carp have signed Elehuris Montero, one of the top clubs over in NPB, Nippon Professional Baseball in Japan. I said it on my last podcast. Where's Montero going to go? He's a minor league free agent. Japan seems to be calling him. And they literally did that. The Hiroshima Carp signed Elehuris Montero, and he is now poised, in my opinion, to hit 25 to 30 home runs. He is poised to build up his reputation, build up his resume, to come back, hopefully, triumphantly to the U.S., because he has a ton of value in a clubhouse as a Dominican player who speaks English and gets along with everybody. He is a great clubhouse addition for any big league club, but his opportunities kind of run out, needs to improve his value, needs to go make some money, because he'll be making more money over in Japan than in the U.S., at least in 2025. So you're getting that guaranteed money. You don't have to worry about getting option back to the minors. You're on waivers. You're in that holding pattern waiting for your next team. You can't play. So Elehuris Montero going over to the Hiroshima Carp, 26 years old, still really young, still has a lot of good days ahead of him. We've seen him, when getting regular playing time with Colorado, put up some really solid numbers. And I think he's going to have a lot of success over there. I really do. Now, Hiroshima Carp, what do you know about them? Well, one, if you look at their logo, it looks a lot like the Cincinnati Reds. That is one of the few teams over in Japan that has some similarity to American team. The Chunichi Dragons has a letter D that looks a lot like the Los Angeles Dodgers D. But the teams in Japan, you may or may not know, the teams in Japan are not named after cities. They're named after companies and corporations. Now, the Hiroshima Carp seem as if they are that exception, but their full proper name is the Hiroshima Toyo Carp, and they're actually not called that very much in the media. But the teams in Japan are named after corporations. Yomiuri Giants. You think of the Tokyo Giants, they're really the Yomiuri Giants, and Yomiuri being the leading newspaper over in Tokyo. The I'm now drawing a blank on almost every single Japanese name. You've got the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. That's a bank, obviously. Now, the company that owns the Hiroshima Carp, Hiroshima Toyo Carp, is actually Mazda. The Mazda Motor Corporation, basically the Toyo Kogyo company, renamed itself in 1984 Mazda Motor Corporation. And if you're a Mazda driver, then you should be rooting for the Carp. You absolutely should be. So there's a yogurt company, the Yakult Swallows. One of the team that Shohei Ohtani played for were the Nippon Ham Fighters. Now, they weren't the Ham Fighters. That wasn't their nickname. They were the Fighters. And the company that owned them was Nippon Ham, Japan Ham. So that is a fun little wrinkle learning about the teams from Asia. KBO in Korea, South Korea, they also use the same naming rights, if you will. A company, a corporation is the first part of the name before you get to the nickname, not a city. Some other notable Hiroshima Carp players, Kenta Maeda, Seiya Suzuki, Hiroki Kuroda, all came out of the Hiroshima Carp system. Kuroda, in fact, has his number retired by Hiroshima. Other big leaguers, Ryan Brazier. He couldn't figure things out in America, in MLB, went over to play for the Carp, and then came back, and you saw him getting some big outs in the World Series for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So I know Montero is hoping for the same thing. He can kind of reevaluate some things, get some different coaching, benefit from a different way of going about business, because the Japanese players, they work hard. They work their butts off. They absolutely do. And so I think he can go ahead and improve his value, because the MPB is very similar to the Pacific Coast. Like it's a AAA kind of league. And Montero has shown he's got nothing else left to prove in AAA. He's almost become a quadruple A player, but I think there's still an opportunity for him to be more than just a quadruple A player. Alfonso Soriano played with the Carp. This was before he signed with the Yankees. Somewhat of a workaround for him to be able to make more money on the open market. And we've seen some players do that in the past. Recently, a young man, not a gentleman. He is a gentleman at this point. Carter Stewart, drafted by Atlanta. And because he couldn't come together on a signing bonus with the club that drafted him, he actually said, goodbye, I'm going to go take guaranteed money over in Japan. And that doesn't seem to have worked out for him just yet, but the verdict is still out. Verdict still out for a lot of young prospects for the Rockies who are still playing right now in the Arizona Fall League over the weekend. The Fall Stars game took place down in the Phoenix area, and there were two representatives by the Colorado Rockies, Skylar Messenger and Evan Justice. Both of them did not factor in very much in the game. Evan Justice ended up getting charged with a bunch of runs, walked more in that game than he did actually in the Arizona Fall League during the season. Evan Justice, you might know that name as a prospect because he still is, did debut in 2023 with the Rockies. He's been really good. He's been really good for the Salt River Rafters. 8 games played, 7 2/3 innings pitched, has yet to give up a run during that regular season, has walked only 1 and has struck out 10. So Evan Justice doing a good job to hold on to that spot on the 40-man roster. He's been besieged by injuries this entire season, actually missed all of 2022, similarly with injuries. This is a young man that lefty out of the bullpen, drafted in the 5th round out of North Carolina State in 2021, debuted, played only 3 games in the minors in 2021, missed all of 2022, and then in 2023, lo and behold, does incredible things with AA Hartford in AAA, and then makes his debut. Comes into 2023, think about that. Comes into 2023 with only 3 games of professional experience, and by the end of that season, he would debut with the Rockies. So still very much a prospect, still has rookie eligibility. Evan Justice doing some big things down in the Arizona Fall League. And then Skylar Messenger, really on the opposite side of the spectrum if you're talking about prospects, because this is a young man who was taken in the 19th round out of the University of Texas, a Longhorn with Colorado ties, born and raised in Colorado, born in Boulder, went to Niwot High School, and had Troy Tulowitzki, favorite player, boom, gets drafted by his hometown team. You love stories like that. Broke out in a big way in 2023 with Loe Fresno. Was arguably their team MVP in 2023. Injured, banged up for a lot of 2024. He was drafted almost with the hope that he would be a utility infielder, but more of a third base, first base profile. Been playing mostly first base with the Rafters in the Arizona Fall League, but 293 with a homer and 11 RBI with the Rafters. So doing a really solid job as he continues to improve his stock. Around the league, we learned that Brenton Doyle would not be the Platinum Glove Award winner, although it does seem to be a something that's in the cards for him. It does seem to be something that's in his future. Bryce Terang winning that in the National League at second base for the Milwaukee Brewers, and Cal Raleigh, big dumper, winning it as a catcher for the Seattle Mariners. Really cool to see on social media the outpouring of love for both Brenton Doyle and Ezekiel Tovar, both of them together, especially after last year. Doyle had to go through the whole experience by himself as the lone Gold Glove Award winner for the Rockies. But now, one of 6 teams with 2 players that have won a Gold Glove Award in 2024. In the chat, Gleyber Torres to the Rockies. I did talk about that earlier in the week. If the Rockies are cutting payroll, it doesn't seem like Torres is going to be a fit. They got to trade Brendan Rodgers first. We'll see if that happens. Seems unlikely, but you can hold out. You can hold out hope. You definitely can hold out hope. Juan Soto to the Rockies, that's one where you definitely shouldn't hold your breath for. But if you did for Gleyber Torres, you wouldn't be totally crazy. You would not be totally crazy. Bly Madris, I mentioned him last week, graduated from Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction, signs a deal with the Tigers. And then the Marlins, the final coaching spot, the open availability for a manager in MLB. The White Sox, after a rough season, 121 losses, they part ways with Pedro Grifol in only his second season. Grady Sizemore didn't have any more luck. They go ahead and they bring in Will Venable from the Texas Rangers staff. The Reds end up going a different direction after David Bell struggled to really get them back to the postseason again. And so they go with Terry Francona. Really good signing, really good acquisition by the Reds that just with a manager like Tito Francona, that immediately puts you in conversation as a playoff contender, as a wild card potential club. No doubt about that with Terry Francona. And now the Miami Marlins have made their decision. They pull 2 of the best from the National League West. Clayton McCullough, Dodgers coach, reuniting with Gabe Kapler. Got to forget, can't forget, got to remember. Gabe Kapler did come from that Dodgers organization in their farm system, working closely there before moving on to Philadelphia and San Francisco. And in San Francisco, that's where he met Pedro Guerrero. No, not the former big leaguer Pedro Guerrero and the guy with ties to O.J. Simpson, which you never want to say. Sorry, I said it. But Pedro Guerrero, the assistant hitting coach for the San Francisco Giants. So McCullough's been a name that's been kicked around, bandied about for a lot of jobs here the last couple of seasons. With a lot of teams with openings. McCullough doing a great job with Shohei Ohtani, working on the base running plan for him, getting him to 59 steals. So anytime you can pull from a successful organization like the Dodgers, that is a really good acquisition. Giants, a lot of really good seasons by their players, especially when you consider how banged up they were. As a roster in 2024, but Guerrero having a lot of success. So the Marlins going around the game, just as they did when they went a different direction from Kim Ang, which you don't like to see that, but going in a different direction and saying, hey, we need some folks that think outside the box. So we're going to go and pluck a guy out of the Tampa Bay Rays and hire Peter Bendix to run the show in St. Petersburg. No, to run the show in Miami from St. Petersburg. And now they're going to do the same thing with picking from the best from the Dodgers organization in Clayton McCullough, now their new manager, and Pedro Guerrero as their new hitting coach. Where's Skip Schumacher? He did accept a job to work in the front office with the Texas Rangers as an assistant to GM Chris Young. So we're all locked up as far as managers are concerned, as we are about a month away from the winter meetings, and still so much more to talk about in the world of the Colorado Rockies. They might not make a ton of moves, but when they do, they're going to be interesting. They may be controversial, like another Nolan Arenado trade. Hey, that doesn't have anything to do with the Rockies directly, but his name is being thrown out there. His name is being discussed by the St. Louis Cardinals. I'll talk about that this week. I'll talk about Roki Sasaki. Who is this guy? Is he the next Yamamoto? Is he better than Yamamoto? I think he might be. I think he might be. What are the odds? What are the chances that the Rockies are able to acquire him? Because the money is not what you think it might be. Stick around this entire week on the Rockies Insider. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. You're going over, leaving comments, even if you're not able to watch live. Jonathan, appreciate you, buddy. Even if you're not able to watch live on YouTube, you can still leave comments on YouTube, and I can answer those questions. We can interact and engage over on Twitter at Patrick D. Lyons, Threads, TikTok at Patrick D. Lyons, MLB. Appreciate you sticking around, giving me this momentum. But as I like to say, my momentum is only as good as my next show. So I need to step it up, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.